Wazari Designs. I've been toying with this idea for some time now, establishing a YouTube presence, but the idea was so daunting because it feels vulnerable, just exposing yourself out there to the entire world. But I decided to do it nonetheless, and I hope you'll be a part of my journey as we are undertaking this new adventure. The overall concept of Wazari Designs is to chronicle my journey as a designer, an artist, and to some degree, an entrepreneur. This journey started from childhood. I've always loved art and design. From as far back as I can remember, I realized that when I drew, it looked a bit different from everybody else in class at the basic school level, And all throughout my life, my teachers saw the talent. They submitted my work into art competitions and so on. And early on in life, I knew that I wanted to be a creative professional. My mother was always a source of inspiration in that regard as well, and motivation. And she encouraged me to pursue it and to go to the Renna College to hone my skills and to become a creative professional. When I went to the Renna College, I was at a different point in my life, had a different outlook. I had a love affair with illustration, drawing, comic books, and so on. And I wanted to be the first comic book publisher in Jamaica of my official comic book imprint, just like you have Marvel or DC. Wanted to have my own local imprint, my own list of characters and so on, and to create my own IP. But over time, that idea started to just fade out of importance. So when I went to the Renna College, didn't get into the graphic department, went into sculpture, started to explore my abilities as a three-dimensional artist. In foundation year, I actually realized that I was actually a very strong 3D artist. I didn't even know that I had that capacity. But at the time when I started to explore sculpture in my foundation year, I really got some good grades and decided, I'm going to explore sculpture professionally. Did second year in the sculpture department, and at that juncture in my life, I started to have some convictions about, observing Sabbath, and there was some conflicts in terms of an insistence on some persons in faculty that I should just wave this whole idea away of holding on to a conviction. Now, you, my audience, might not be of the same religious persuasion as myself, but I strongly believe in liberty of conscience. Whether you are religious or irreligious, you have an inalienable right to be what you are. And at that point in my life, I decided that, I tried being irreligious, and at that point, I became religious, and I saw it as my inalienable right. I just giving you a precursor, a heads up. My belief system is intrinsic to who I am as a person, and the platform is not to preach to anyone, but you will see my convictions coming out. My convictions come out in my work, my convictions come out in my daily life, my convictions form a part of who I am. Now, I don't impose my convictions on others because I believe in liberty of conscience to the core of my being. So if you are not religious, I respect that. I respect that. But all I'm asking is that my choice to be religious is respected as well, because it is an irreplaceable, immovable, indelible aspect of who I am as a person. It plays a vital role to who I am. So putting that out there, and it has been put out there so we can move on in our journey. So I decided, with all the pressures concerning my new convictions about Sabbath observance, that staying in sculpture would not be the best choice for me. And I remember that I got good grades in ceramics as well. And I remember having a conversation with Mr. Philip Supasad, very, very talented Jamaican potter. And in passing, he said to me, Wazari, I don't think you're enjoying yourself as much here in the sculpture department. Why not try ceramics? And I remember that conversation, and I reached out to the department, reached out to my director of studies, Mrs. Hope Wheeler, and she spoke to the head of the department and the teachers there, and they all agreed that they would give me a shot at the ceramics department. And that's where my journey as a potter started. I transferred late to the ceramics department, so I wasn't the best potter when I got there. I was challenged with the wheel, but I had a strong sensibility for form and so on, and I think I took that over from sculpture. So I did that which was easier for me to do while I was in college, which is to use a pinch pot technique or the coil technique or any kind of freeform technique to produce a body of work. And I would make my attempts at the wheel and so on. Just before staging my final year show, I purchased a potter's wheel and I started to practice at home, because I was way behind, and I saved whatever I could, and my mother assisted me as well, and I bought a potter's wheel, and we started just working on the idea of starting a ceramic business, even right there in school. And I got to get extra time to practice on the wheel and so on, and that aided me in being able to stage a good final year show and to pass, and the rest was history. I was out at the Edamani College, and my aim was to become a professional potter, a professional creative. So I started to try and build a client base. So my first customer was Mrs. Vivienne Castro, close family friend, and I refer to her as Auntie Vivienne, So she reached out to me. She loves orchids, and she reached out to me and wanted an orchid planter, and she wanted a peach orchid planter. I remember even the color. That was my first commission. And when I saw that I got a commission to make something, and I made this bowl, and she really fell in love with it, and when I saw the orchid in it, I said, yes, this looks like it looks like it's going to go somewhere, And after that, I got another orchid planter order, and then there was this place called the Accent Place on Reddy's Road, close to Calabar High School. That business has closed down since, but I remember passing there, and they used to sell Mexican pottery, imported Mexican pottery. And I decided to go in there one day and speak to the owner. And she gave me a shot. She said, all right, I'm going to take an order of 6 orchid planters. And once you get those going, and if I see them move fast enough, I'll continue ordering from you. And I remember the manager at the time, Mrs. Murray, very friendly lady, lovely lady. Mrs. Murray was so elated when she saw the first order because she was really rooting for me. And then when I saw how fast they went and I started getting more orders and more orders, I said, yeah, this thing looks like it's really going to work. But then I wanted to go into the arena of fine arts as well, tap into that market. I was using my creativity to make utilitarian pieces, but I wanted to tap into the fine art arena. And at the time there was a gallery called Mutual Gallery. And I remember when I showed some pieces there first, the curator wasn't very excited about the pieces. And I decided to try Pegasus Gallery. And when I went to Pegasus Gallery, I was still just making basic forms, if I'm going to be honest with myself. And Vera Ennis, who was the proprietor and curator for the Pegasus Gallery. I'm just always going to have a special place for Vera Ennis. Yeah, Vera Ennis, somebody I really love, you know. I remember Miss Ennis was saying to me that, Wazari, I can see that technically you know how to get a good farm made and so on, but you need to develop a style. Explore yourself and see what you are passionate about and develop a style. Now, when I went back home and I tried to develop like my own style, I started to just search in the recesses of my own mind and subconscious, you know, what is it that moves you? And I remember Mike Stanley's color theory class. Mr. Stanley was one of our best teachers. Mr. Stanley made Edna Manley a happy place to be. You know, really want to take this opportunity to express my condolences to his family, you know, because they still have to deal with the loss of Mr. Stanley. But he was an extraordinary teacher, very nice, very friendly, very encouraging. You know, you had a real teacher in Mr. Stanley, you know, and I really enjoyed his color theory class, and I learned a lot from him in terms of color theory and how color can create mood and, you know, alter your state of mind sometimes. And I decided to incorporate a lot of color theory in my work, because at the time